Teams, obviously, where we have myself, Elena, and some attendees so far, and we're live on YouTube as well from now on. This is SQL Friday, and it's episode number 144. So I've been doing this for 4 years, and every week I'm really blessed with having amazing speakers volunteering to. As today, for example, Elena wakes up in the middle of the night to do a presentation for us, and I just get to listen, and today also participate a little bit because it's more of an interactive session than we're probably used to. The topic is communicating technical concepts to a non-technical audience, and I think most of the attendees are probably techies, and we all can kind of relate to the topic, that you have a business person who probably you need them to sponsor a project, and you know that it's going to be amazing, it's going to be good for the company or the organization, and it's going to if you don't do it, it's going to be the result's going to be bad if you don't get the funding for it. But then to try to explain it to someone who is not technical is not always that easy. So I look forward to joining you today, Elena. Welcome to SQL Friday.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Magnus. That's exactly the point that I want to discuss with everyone today, is just how vitally important it is to be able to convey necessary information to whatever type of audience it is that you're delivering that information to, whether it is the stakeholder in a client business, or even if there's a newer person to the team who doesn't quite have the same technical knowledge that you have, and how to break down what the team does, what the department does, in a manner in which they can understand. It's all important, and it all matters. So welcome everybody to today's SQL Friday. We're discussing code to clarity, communicating technical concepts to a non-technical audience. And I am Elena Marquetti-Ali, your very non-technical presenter. I am actually a leadership coach and speaker, and a 20-year healthcare executive. But the reason I feel confident having this discussion with you today is because I have also been an instructor at the universities for 10 or 11 years now. And so I have honed a skill in helping people to understand concepts that are new to them. One other thing I like to share about myself, just to make myself a little bit more relatable to some of my audiences, maybe not, is that I am an avid Star Trek fan. I am everything sci-fi. Magnus, do you like Star Trek or Star Wars or anything sci-fi, or is it just me? Yeah, well, close enough. Magnus, tell me what is it that you do professionally? Okay, absolutely. And so, like you said, in your line of work as a consultant, you are having to explain the databases and how they work and how they function and how they benefit or will benefit your clients, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So what we're talking about today is our ability to bridge the gap in communicating technical findings to our non-technical stakeholders. This is absolutely a critical skill where we will be bridging the gap between our complex data insights with the actionable business decisions. All right, I just want to stop there. Again, today's discussion is going to be interactive. So to everyone that's attending, thank you for attending, and feel free to interrupt, chime in, let me know what you're thinking if you have any questions, okay? So it's known that 86% of employees and executives blame the lack of effective collaboration and communication as the leading cause for errors in the workplace. So you having the ability to connect the dots for your end user is essential to them truly benefiting from your product or your service, and it can help eliminate user error and help to decrease some of the well, it's not working conversations, phone calls, and emails. Okay, critical skill that we're going to be discussing. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to break down, just from a teacher perspective, three essential elements of deliberating information in digestible bite sizes for your audiences. And one of the first things that you have to consider when you're even talking about having this conversation is, who are you as a person, so you can play to your strengths. What do I mean by that? I'm asking the question, are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? See, introverts tend to be more creative. They tend to be more reflective, and it's great. They have a great use that to your advantage to reflect to your customers' needs and their style, okay? And you have the ability to find ways to connect. Whereas extroverts, they tend to be more talkative and more sociable. And that's fantastic too. If you are an extrovert, you want to use that to your advantage. Okay, so listen, it's important when you are having this conversation, you're an educator and you need to understand yourself first to play to your strengths. Are you an introvert? Because that's going to play well for you because you're usually a more creative person. And if you're an extrovert, that's going to work well for you too when you play to the fact that you are sociable and you're talkative. Okay. Now that you understand who you are as an individual, the second thing is to understand your audience. So before you craft your message, you have to understand the level of technical expertise that your audience possesses. This way, you can tailor your communication style and avoid jargon and technical details that might confuse them rather than clarify. Okay, so what you're going to start by doing is you are going to decode the message. What first thing that we do when we decode our messaging is we provide definitions and importance. Technical jargon can confuse the client. Magnus, in your line of work, in your consulting, what is some jargon that you might just throw around on a daily basis that maybe I, as your client, don't immediately understand?
I would say since I've spent 25 years specializing, I'm probably gonna go into details of how the database engine works when I try to explain something, which probably goes over the head of most people who hasn't spent 25 years trying to understand the depth of the database engine. So as an example, I will probably talk about cardinality estimation, or I will talk about some typical metrics from a database system that I would understand, and I would much too often probably assume that everyone else understands it as well.
Absolutely. As soon as you threw that term out there, I just kind of like blank stared, like, oh, really? That's interesting. But as you said, you spent 25 years gathering this information, understanding it. this is day one for me. I don't know. So my background is healthcare, right? So if I said, something like FOCs or POCs, Cardexes, QMs, most of the people in the room are blank staring back at me like, Elena, I have no idea. What are you talking about? What is a QM? Well, a QM in my field is short for quality measure. And a quality measure in a healthcare establishment here in the US is basically a report card or a grading system given to us by the federal government, which judges our ability to provide healthy outcomes for our patients. But if I just said to you, QM, I've lost you. But if I explain, well, it's a report card or a grading system. That's more universal language. You can follow me. It makes sense to you. We oftentimes take for granted that what is common knowledge for us is common knowledge for everybody. But as I like to say, common knowledge or even common sense isn't common anymore. I'm going to tell you guys a story. So, Magnus, you know what an ER is, right?
Yeah, like the emergency room in a hospital. Yeah.
The emergency room in the hospital. Well, you would assume everyone knows what, I'm sorry, I assumed everyone knew what ER was. Well, one day I called my husband from my doctor's office, and I said, "Hey, hon," I said, "I'm here at the doctor's office, but they're sending me to the ER. I'll call you when I get to the ER." He said, "Okay," and hung up the phone. I went to the ER. I was in the ER for a few hours. Turns out everything was okay. They sent me home. And hours after I get home, I never called my husband, but hours after I get home, he finally gets home, and I'm upset. And I said, "I can't believe you didn't call and check up on me today. I told you I was going to the ER." And he says, "Well, okay, why are you upset about you going, like, what? I'm not following you." I said, "Listen, I told you I was going to the ER. You didn't call me, you didn't check up on me. Who knows what could have gone wrong?" And he's like, "Literally, I'm lost. What are we talking about?" I said, "Honey, I was at the emergency room. It was a situation." And he says, "Oh, emergency room. I didn't know ER was an emergency room. I thought that was just a different doctor they were sending you over to. I thought they were sending you to somebody else's office." And I thought, oh my goodness, how did you not know ER stood for emergency room? But he didn't. So he doesn't watch a lot of television, nor did he have 20 years experience in healthcare. And so in that moment, it reminded me what is common knowledge, common terms, regular jargon for you is not common, is not regular information for your audience. So we have to define for our audience the words that we are using, and we have to make sure they understand the importance. So we have to use clear and simple language. We need to break down complex technical concepts into just straightforward language, just like Magnus did for us when he threw out a term and explained what that was. And just like I had to explain ER, and most people have seen ER, the series, one of my favorite series, but sometimes we have to break things down for people. And decoding technical jargon for a non-technical audience often involves breaking down those complex terms into simpler, more relatable language. For example, instead of using algorithm, one might describe it as like a computer program that learns from data to make predictions, or machine learning models, step-by-step set of instructions for solving a problem. Terms like API or metadata could be explained as a way for different software programs to communicate with each other, or information about other data that helps organize and understand it, respectively, of course. So by providing everyday analogies and avoiding overly technical language. These explanations make abstract concepts more tangible and understandable for individuals without a technical background. So we also need to consider identification techniques like contextual analysis. So you want to pay attention to the context in which the technical terms are used. Understanding the surrounding text or conversation can provide clues to the meaning of unfamiliar terms. Have you heard of like a root word analysis? Where you look at just the particular pieces of the word to try to understand what it is. Learn how to break down technical terms into their root words or the prefixes or the suffixes. When you identify familiar components, that you can deduce the meaning of the term as a whole for your audience. Also, there are online resources. Hey, Elena, I don't really know how to break words down like that. Okay, that's fine. There are online resources that you can use, or you can introduce them to your clients. And they're like online dictionaries or glossaries that are dedicated to explaining technical terms in a very simple language. So two that I'm very familiar with is techterms.com and whatis.com. So techterms.com or whatis.com, those can be valuable resources for helping you or your audience decipher the jargon. So use them ahead of time before you have a conversation with these key stakeholders or team members in order to, okay, how do I break this down for them? Or you can give them this information and say, hey, if you have any other questions or something's not making sense to you and you can't get a hold of me, try using these websites to help you better understand some of the information. But as the presenter of the information, I ask you, ask questions of your audience, okay? Encourage your clients to ask questions when they encounter unfamiliar terms. Hey, if something's not making sense to you, stop me, ask me a question. I'll be more than happy to take some time and to make it make sense to you. Because if your clients do not understand what it is that you're saying, that could lead to, again, user error. That could lead to maybe not making the sale because they didn't understand the benefits of the system, of the product, of the software. So they've walked away and you've lost a sale. Important. Focus on key insights. So identify the most crucial findings that directly impact your client's business goals. Highlight those key insights, and doing so ensures that your audience can quickly understand and prioritize the information that matters most to them. Okay. I want to play a little game. Magnus, are you willing to play a little game with me?
Sure. Shoot.
Okay. Okay. So this is a little game I like to call Tech Term Twist. Okay. I am just going to give you a term, a technical term, and I want you to think of an analogy or a synonym for the term that can make it more understandable for a non-technical audience. Okay. All right. So I want you to be creative, and I want to remind you that analogies can come from anywhere, everyday objects, activities, or experiences. So, and everybody that's attending, you think about it too, and you come up with an explanation, analogy, or a synonym. So, let's see. You're dealing in Microsoft. Well, I'll give you a simple term. Can you come up with an analogy or a synonym for database? Like how to explain a database by using an analogy or a synonym.
All right, so I would. It's a good question because I should be able to, since I work with it. But it is where a software system will store the information that users input into the system. So, for an example, if you go to a hospital and you meet a doctor, and the doctor has probably knows that they have an appointment with you, so that's stored in the database that the appointment is made. Then the doctor probably takes some notes and gives you some prescriptions for drugs, or gives you whatever the doctor does. That is information that the doctor types into a system, and it's stored into a database, so that the next time you go to the doctor, they can pick up their notes and see whatever you agreed on last time you met.
I followed you 1,000%. I get it. That makes so much sense. How about I'm gonna just throw one more at you. What about firewall?
All right, so firewall is either software or hardware that protects your company network from an outside or an inside threat. It could be a hacker who tries to hack into your system, and since you have probably websites in your organization, you want anyone to be able to access the websites. So the website is announced to the internet on a specific port, or a one way to get into your network, but you don't want to allow anyone to get into any other system on the inside of your organization. So then the firewall will, if you configure it correctly, it will protect your company assets from being attacked by a hacker from the outside. I think. I'm not a network expert.
Yeah, no, but basically, as a non-technical person, you've conveyed to me that a firewall is protective measures, like a security barrier, And so now I understand that its importance. When you broke it down and made me see it as protection and privacy, now it's important. I get those terms, not necessarily firewall, but the terms that you use can immediately resonate with me differently than firewall. So thank you. Thanks for participating, Magnus. I appreciate that. I think that anyone listening to you, technical or non-technical, would definitely say that they have a better understanding of the terms database and firewall, even though firewall isn't necessarily what you're doing day to day. Well, okay. So everybody remember, we're discussing 3 important key ideas about having technical conversations with non-technical audiences. And the first key was decoding, breaking down the information into terms that your audience will understand. The second key is story, okay? And we started that with the game, which is looking at analogies and metaphors. So storytelling is a way to make information more relatable and memorable. Analogies, metaphors provides us opportunities to storytelling our information so that our customers can see it, they can relate to it. So when I shared the story about the ER emergency rooms, I think that people could more relate to it. I mean, there could have been comedy, there could have been angst. There were all these additional emotions carried in the story that would resonate with those hearing it. And now they can understand, oh yeah, boy, it's really important to get those get an understanding between two people, because in that story, you can see where a lack of understanding created a lack of communication, which, kind of messed things up. So storytelling is important in having technical conversations with non-technical individuals. So storytelling allows you to frame your technical findings within a narrative that will align with your client's business objectives. So consider crafting a story that explains the context, the problem at hand, the problem that the client could be facing, is facing, okay? Your story will include the solution proposed, which is your consulting service, your software, your database, and then the anticipated impact on the business outcomes. How can partnering with Magnus better your company? How can purchasing our software package better your business outcomes? How will your employees do better by having use or access to our database? Frame that in a story. Stories provide impact. Incorporate real world examples. Techniques for integrating relatable experiences into technical narratives. Connect the client's business goals, okay? Clearly articulate how the technical findings align with the broader business objectives. Okay, demonstrate the impact of the data insights on key performance indicators. This will help your stakeholders, your client, understand the value proposition, or why your service is valuable to their business. Analogies and metaphors, those are strategies to help create more tangible concepts. Use them to your advantage. Okay, so the first key in this communication process is decoding. Break down that jargon, make it easily understandable and digestible for your audience. The second key is storytelling. Use stories to help your clients, your customers, your new team members relate to the information, okay? And storytelling makes it memorable. The third key, the last key, are visuals. Research has found that 65% of the general population are visual learners, meaning they need to see information in order to retain it. So leverage data visualization tools to create clear and compelling graphics. Use graphs in your presentation. Use charts. Infographics can convey complex information in a visually appealing manner, which make it more accessible to those without a technical background. I love cooking. I'm actually coming out with a cookbook next year. Anyways, I love cooking, but when I look at a recipe, if I'm using a recipe to make something, I'm going to look at that recipe probably 15 to 20 times while I'm preparing this dish, because I keep going back. Okay, how much of salt, how much broth, how much starch, and I'm okay, which do I do first? And so if I look at a recipe, I don't remember the steps it takes to make the dish. However, when I watch a video of a person preparing a dish, whether it's a full-fledged cooking show or a 2-minute reel on social media of someone, on TikTok or Instagram, or Facebook, if I watch them make a dish, I usually watch it 2 or 3 times and it sticks with me. And then I don't need a recipe. I saw it and I can repeat it. That's what visual aids do. They offer a multi-sensory engagement for your client, for your audience. And visuals appeal to multiple senses. They engage sight and indirectly other senses like touch and spatial awareness. This multisensory experience enhances learning and memory retention compared to just relying solely on auditory explanations. Why does Elena have these quirky little slides today? Because you can't see my face, so it just you're just listening to me. It's just a bunch of words coming out at you. But I'm hoping that with the use of the slides, this becomes more memorable information. I have visuals on the screen. You see this little girl painting. Okay, I'm making the connection. That's what visuals are, something to look at. This helps the audience remember the information that you've been giving them. It also helps them to have more attention and interest in what it is that you're saying. Visuals have the power to capture and maintain an audience's attention. They tend to break the monotony of a verbal presentation and help to stimulate interest. Usually I may be using videos, but today I'm just using just pictures, hopefully helping you stay along the course with me. Visuals also provide a universal understanding, right? Visuals transcend language barriers. Magnus, I'm going to call on you again. Can you think of something that if we all saw it, regardless of a language, we would probably know what it was?
Oh, good question. Probably a sign of a sidewalk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're walking down a street in any country, in any language, and you see a sign on the sidewalk and it's got a little caricature of a person walking. I think regardless of language, you think, this must be where I can walk, right? I see a person, looks like they're on a path. Maybe that's where I'm supposed to cross the street, or maybe that's where it's safe for me to walk. Or sometimes you might see lines on the road and you see a bike painted. Well, I'm like, okay, maybe that's where it's safe for the bikes to ride. So visuals break language barriers. So I encourage you, when you have an opportunity to discuss information with clients, if there is any way for you to use some type of visual aid, a graph, a chart, um, pictures, use it. It will make your information more memorable and also relatable, because they may not need words because they understand the concept of the picture. Use diagrams, right? Visual presentations will illustrate processes, systems, or even how things relate to each other. So using flow charts, mind maps, even schematic diagrams, those are ways to simplify complex structures. Charts are ways to convey data or information and present numerical data. And it can also help you highlight trends or comparisons. Infographics, visual representations that combine text and graphics and data to convey information concisely and in a way that will really engage your audience. You can also use hands-on. It wasn't necessarily hands-on, but our little tech term twist that we did, where I threw out a term and Magnus so eloquently was able to create an analogy and help define that term. That's kind of hands-on. That's ways to present information And then allocate time for the your participants to practice their presentation skills. So throughout this session, we've looked into valuable strategies for decoding technical jargon and communicating complex concepts to a non-technical audience effectively. I encourage you to apply these in your profession and even in your personal communication. Okay? Remember, you're going to teach someone, you're going to communicate information. Number one, understand who you are as a presenter or a communicator. Look at your personality. Are you creative? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Then find out who your audience is. What kind of information are they, do they already possess? What's their technical capabilities? What's their background? Why is it important for them to connect with you and utilize your services? Understand yourself, understand your client. And then the 3 keys to conveying the information in a manner that they can understand includes decoding, breaking down that information, making it so they can easily understand it. Don't use the big terms because we probably don't know what they mean. Use terms that we can understand. Then use stories. Make the information memorable, relatable, make it tangible, where we can understand how important it is to work with you, connect with you, utilize your services, purchase your products. Use stories. And then visuals. Display your information in a graphic, a chart, somewhere where it's relatable and I can easily compare information, and then do me a favor. I want you to put all of these newfound skills into practice in both your professional and your personal endeavors, whether you're presenting to clients, whether you are collaborating with colleagues, or simply explaining technical concepts to friends or family. Remember the importance of clear and accessible communication. I want you to challenge yourself to simplify complex ideas and incorporate relatable anecdotes and utilize visual aids to enhance understanding. By becoming ambassadors of clarity and effective communication, you not only elevate your own expertise, but you also empower others to engage with and understand the most fascinating world of technology. So, in closing, let's just recognize that clear and effective communication is not just a skill, but it is a bridge that connects diverse perspectives and fosters collaboration. So I want to thank you for your commitment to mastering the art of communication. And I hope that your efforts pave the way for a future where understanding knows no boundaries. So my last slide is just saying thank you. If you stayed awake at all, if you paid attention at all, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for tuning in to SQL Friday. I want to thank Magnus for having me. If you want to connect with me, my information is on the screen. I will stop sharing now so you can see my friend.